It's Monday, September 9th, and impacts from Tropical Storm Imelda are going to start being felt today. They're actually already being felt in the Bahamas. We're seeing some tropical storm impacts there, including surge, lots of rainfall, and then even some gusty winds. Luckily, those winds are not super strong, though, as it's only a 40-mile-an-hour sustained wind storm currently. But starting Monday afternoon, we're going to start to see some mild impacts, really all the way up from the Florida coast, starting around the West Palm area, all the way up to the Outer Banks region of North Carolina. Those impacts are going to be greatest along the eastern Florida coast. However, we could see some gusty winds, potentially some big swells and beach erosion, but really it's going to be nothing more than you'd see from your typical afternoon storm. And the same thing goes all the way up until the Outer Banks. And there's also going to be a very small threat of some flooding rainfall today, but that's likely only going to be in that 2-inch range. So really nothing to worry out there. And then it looks like Imelda is still going to continue on that track, not really harming the US at all, as it gets kind of Fujiwara by Hurricane Umberto out to the Atlantic. And here is Imelda in its current state, definitely moving on that northward track before it gets sucked out into the Atlantic by that Fujiwara effect from Umberto. But it looks way more organized than we last saw it. Still, it's not really looking super organized, which kind of tells you how disorganized it looked just 24 hours ago. But we can see a lot more convection towers along what appears to be the center of rotation around that low pressure center. And it looks like it's starting to get kind of that rotational look to it as well. So it's definitely an organizing storm that appears to be strengthening, but still isn't really going to get strong enough to bring any major impacts anywhere to the United States. And speaking of Umberto, which is going to be the main steerer of Imelda away from the US, here it is currently. It is still a high-end Category 4 storm, 145-mile-an-hour sustained winds. This high strength is one of the main things which is kind of allowing that Fujiwara effect to be enhanced, and we're really going to see that big pull away from the US out to the Atlantic. It looks like this is still going to be a major hurricane all the way up until Tuesday morning, potentially bringing some tropical storm impacts to Bermuda. But the main thing this is going to do for us is that it's going to steer Imelda away from the United States. And here's Umberto in its current state, and this is one of the most beautiful storms I've ever seen on infrared with that small eye. It looks like it's kind of starting to collapse, so definitely in the weakening part of Umberto's life, but it has also grown in size by a very large amount, almost 2 times in the last 48 hours. But this is a very classic look to a hurricane, and this is definitely just a very pretty storm to look at meteorologically. But moving back to future tracks, here's some model data from the American model, or GFS, and we can see that big turn out to the Atlantic as it starts to experience the Fujiwara effect from Umberto. And it looks like really the only area which could potentially see this is downstream. In the long run, we could potentially see Bermuda feel the effects of Imelda as well. But currently that's pretty far out, so that's definitely not confirmed at all. And really kind of confirming what we've been talking about, with really the main thing that we're going to see being some gusty winds and rain along the eastern or southeastern coast of the US with Imelda. And that's really going to be all there is. Also, some really dangerous rip currents, so probably want to stay out of the water as well. But branching off from what's happening in the tropics, it is going to be another very nice day weather-wise for the country. It looks like we really only have a couple of areas highlighted where we could see some thunderstorms, one being up here in the far northern part of the US and parts of Minnesota and North Dakota. This little sliver associated with tropical storm and then soon to be Hurricane Imelda. Then we have a big weather complex happening out west. We could potentially see some stronger storms in the upper plains convergence zone in central Colorado and eastern Colorado around the late to mid afternoon hours. And then the same thing would go up here, stretching all the way down from Idaho into Nevada. There is going to be a corridor where we're going to have some frontal activity, some activity spawned by a trough, which could kind of transform into a stronger line of storms as it pushes eastward, also in the mid to late afternoon. And the main thing with both of these areas, which I do think could see an increased probability of some strong storms, all of this is just going to be for some gusty winds. That hail threat is going to be close to 0. And then also there's really not a tornado threat at all today with any of these regions.